Welcome back to Conscious CoCreators. My name is Shani, and today I'm not joined by Uma. Instead, we're joined by a great guest here. It is Joe Motion, a meditation coach and a transformational facilitator.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm glad to be here.
Happy that we connected a few days ago, randomly in our tent at Sacred Soul Fest.
Yes.
And it brought us to this path. So yeah, welcome.
Thank you, man. I'm grateful to be here. I'm excited for what we're going to get into today. And what a cool space you created at Sacred Soul as well. For those that weren't there, it was this really awesome tent. You had these cards of this deck that you've created with questions for people that want to step into facilitating and also to connect deeper with each other. And it kind of magnetized this group of people together that we were instantly going really deep, talking about really deep stuff about ourselves and maybe the limitations we had about facilitating and what it took to step into that. And that was really one of the highlights for the festival for me, man. So thank you for creating that space.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
I feel like for us, that was always the intention. And we've always seen that a lot of people go to festivals and maybe they don't know how to get into those depths. They want to go there, but they're not sure how to navigate the conversations to get there. And sometimes people just need that permission to, okay, we're all going to go deep together now. And a card game is a great way to kind of facilitate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think generally people are ready to go deep with conversations. I think as human beings, we get a lot of nourishment from deep connection and vulnerability. I see the way that when we connect with each other as humans, especially in a vulnerable way, it really bonds us and binds us together. And I think generally in kind of social constructs and social situations, it's kind of surface level, people don't necessarily go straight in with what are your limiting beliefs about yourself, or what are your dreams, or what do you want to create in your life? It's normally, where are you from? People are looking for common ground to relate with each other, right? Which is normal, it's natural. But I think creating, like you said, a permission slip for people to be able to go deep like that is really powerful. And so I don't know if those cards are for sale, but I really recommend them for people to check them out.
Well, we're actually going to be doing them at another place on Sunday. Someone else invited us to their event and was like, we want this at our event again. So we kind of had the idea because for me, it was what I felt was missing and lacking from my experience of Sacred Soul last year, where it was okay, I was having conversations with people and I'd after speaking to someone in the lunch line, talking about random stuff, I'd find out that actually this guy is an incredible facilitator who's doing amazing things, and we didn't find a way to connect in that way.
Right.
We were just talking about the lunch line instead,
Yes.
Which is fine, but it's in these spaces where so many people gather in one space and they have that potential to create something great. I felt like creating a hub to connect people in that way would be powerful.
Yeah, it was. And it's a great way to go deep. And I think it's a really great way to kind of find your tribe as well and know the kind of people that you want to connect deeper with, because you could be having a conversation with your next business partner or your next life partner or your new best friend. Right. But if the conversation isn't going deep, then you'll never be able to see within each other how deep you've both gone. If it stays surface level, where are you from? What do you do? This kind of stuff. You might not necessarily have that bond, that energetic connection with that person, and you go off in different directions. So I think it's so important to create that space, and it really helps you realize kind of who your people are, I think.
Thanks for that. And I feel like listening to you today, and also when we connected in this space, what was clear to me was that you're somebody who has gone through the path, and you have gone through your experiences in life in order to then go and share that wisdom, which is what you're doing now as a meditation coach. And you shared a little bit about how you got started with that. So I'm curious to know, was there a triggering moment for you in your life that kind of sparked this quest for meditation? And
it's been a wild ride, to be honest, man. It's been so much fun. So ever since I was a teenager, like kind of 15, maybe like, yeah, between like 14 and 15, I'd always wanted to be like a big Hollywood movie director. You know, I was like, I'm going to be the next Christopher Nolan, Quentin Tarantino. And I think there was something exciting to me about the creative process of that, of like bringing an idea that hadn't yet been materialized into existence and then working with people to create something from that. And there was also, like, throughout all of my teenage years, my parents just went through this like crazy long divorce. It was like 6 or 7 years, and I was always like the moderator, like the person who would, like, you know, bring down the tone of the arguments, or like get the other person to see the other person's point of view. So what I kind of didn't realize was, at the time, was that I was naturally becoming like a coach, but for my parents. And so that was kind of brewing within me. And like, people always used to compliment me on, like, they were like, oh, you know, for such a young age, you're so kind of wise, even at that young age. But I think it was just growing up too soon, because I kind of had to at that age, which I see everything in life as a blessing and, you know, perfect alignment for the path that we're supposed to be on. So I look back in that experience now with so much gratitude. But that lay dormant for a while in terms of coaching. Like, that wasn't on my mind. I pursued the career of film. I went straight out of school at 18 into the film industry, and I was working on like big movies. Like, I worked on The Batman with Robert Pattinson, Star Wars, like all these massive TV shows, The Crown, Game of Thrones, all this kind of stuff. And I was, you know, I thought that I was going to be fulfilled in doing that. I thought that was the path. I was like, yeah, I'm on the way, you know, to becoming this big shot director. And there was this part of me that was just like, there's something more. Like, there's something more to life than what you're doing right now. And that particular industry was super like intense, and there's like a complete lack of focus on well-being. So it's like, you know, 14, sometimes 16-hour days, like 6 or 7 days a week, crazy schedule for like years on end. And in between film jobs, I would go traveling. And in 2019, I went on a solo trip to Southeast Asia. And when I went there, that was like the first trip where I realized that I was living life on autopilot. Like, I remember on that trip, I was journaling about my travel experiences because I wanted to remember it when I was older. And at one point I wrote in my journal, like, I feel like I've been on autopilot this whole time. And I look back on that experience now, and I think I didn't realize it, but I was actually doing like a personal development journaling, even though I thought it was like a travel journal, you know? Right. And then it all kind of aligned perfectly, because after that, I ended up going to Bali, and I went to this place called the Yoga Barn. And at this point, it was like so out of my depth, you know, like, you know, the conscious community, people are so open and just expressive and themselves. And at that time, as like a 19-year-old with so much conditioning and kind of like preconceived notions and thoughts about myself, I was like super shy in that arena. I was like, I don't know what's going on, you know, who are all these people? Why are they like shouting and chanting and like everyone's so huggy, you know? But something about it to me was like, this is cool, you know? So that was the first time I ever did like a meditation. I did like a vision of the future meditation, and it blew my mind. I had this like vivid picture of myself in the future of like, just a stronger, more confident, more free, more loving than that version of myself that I was. And I also did my first ecstatic dance with a cacao ceremony. And for me, again, that was like, it was, I was there again, like in the middle of this dance floor, everyone dancing around like crazy, like moving their, you know, I love this kind of stuff now, but at the time I was like, what the hell is going on? Yes.
I've been there.
Yeah, I was so stuck in like the matrix conditioning, you know. I was like, oh shit, what does everyone think of me? And then eventually, I don't know whether it's the cacao or just the fact that everyone was just being themselves, I didn't care what I was doing, something just released. And I was like, I'm just gonna dance and kind of move however I want to feel. And I remember the liberation that I felt when I experienced that. And soon after that trip, I actually went straight back into the film industry. Like, there was a job that came my way, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do it. And I kind of like went back into that world and kind of detached a little bit from yoga, meditation, spirituality, that kind of stuff. And then in 2021, I got the insight that I was like, I'm done with the film industry for now. Like, I'm going to go traveling. And in, you know, since 2021, I've really been going all in on meditation, and it's completely transformed my life. I cannot preach meditation's praises enough. It's been so powerful for me. I know that you've experienced the power of meditation as well, so I'm excited to talk about that. And in the last few years, I've just really been enjoying stepping into helping facilitate those spaces for people, and really kind of like demystifying meditation for people, because I think people have a lot of blocks to it, or they've tried it before and maybe they feel like it didn't work for them, or they couldn't keep it consistent. So I feel like a big part of my journey at the moment is really helping people to find a way to make meditation work for them that doesn't have to be based on like a certain technique or, you know, a religious way of doing it, or a certain school or a teaching. Like, I really want to help empower people to find the tools within themselves to create a meditation practice that can really work specifically for them. So it's been a wild sort of like 5 or 6 years. It's been supercharged, but I've loved every moment of it, and just excited to keep riding the wave, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And you touched on quite a few interesting points there. And I feel like when it comes to meditation, this is something that I've not really experienced throughout my childhood. And what you brought up there was demystifying meditation. And I feel like for me, that's a key problem that I had, especially earlier in my life. I would look at meditation as like kind of a waste of time. It was like, why would I waste my time just sitting down? I already, you know, sit down and think about my problems, so I don't need to meditate. And so it could, when I realized the difference between sitting down and thinking about your problems and meditation, then I think a lot of things shifted for me. But I'm curious to hear about, what's your process for like demystifying meditation?
Yeah, so I think first of all, I totally feel the same. Like, I had the same association where I imagined that meditating was like, you know, monks sitting on the top of mountains, which of course is a thing, but that was what I thought it was limited to. And that to me, you know, especially in my teenage years, you know, where I was just playing video games and like eating junk food all the time.
Yeah, me too.
I was like, what could possibly be appealing about that?
No, of course.
And then once I've experienced that for myself, and like the joy and the bliss and the serenity, and also the power of transformation that's come through for me, I've realized that you don't have to be a monk to meditate. You don't have to go to the mountains or the Himalayas. You don't even have to meditate for a long time. It's really something, I think it's really something that I've started to realize is kind of a state of being that you can kind of introduce with a meditation practice. But being meditative in your day, I think that's a state of being that's really profound. And demystifying in the sense that it doesn't have to be like a woo-woo thing or exclusive to people that are spiritual or see themselves as that way. Like, it really can work for everyone in every domain of their life. Like, I'm a true believer that meditation can improve all aspects of your life in such a big way. And
definitely.
I've got like a method that I've created to help people create a meditation that works for them and make it super simple. Because like I said, I want to help people create a way of doing it that works for them, that they're going to have no blocks or resistances to actually doing it because they love it and enjoy it so much. Yeah,
that reminds me actually of an earlier time in my life when I used to smoke cigarettes. And for me, that was like a relaxing moment. I used to smoke to relax. And then I remember one day I had like an important meeting and I wanted to go out for a smoke. I didn't have any cigarettes and no one was around. So I just went there and pretended like I had a cigarette and was like breathing.
Right.
But what I realized was actually just doing that calmed me a lot more than the cigarettes. And I went there and I was just like breathing in and out as pretending like I had a cigarette in my hand.
Wow.
And that kind of what I was doing was breath work, but I didn't know at the time. I was just sort of breathing and relaxing, and my nervous system felt super calm.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought it was because I was imagining smoking a cigarette, but it was actually just the breathing.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's profound, man. What an introduction and initiation into breath work.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but you're so right. I think so many people in this world, and we all do it. It's natural as humans. We rely on external things to change our internal state. And then when you're in that state, you're never truly empowered because you're always reliant on something outside of you to make you feel a certain way inside of you. And it's such a profound shift when you realize that all the tools that you're looking for to feel the way that you want to feel are already inside of you. And you can achieve it through your breath. You can achieve it through meditation. You can achieve it through the way that you're being, loads of these different modalities. And what an exciting time to be alive, where we can share this information. You know, like you back in the day before technology, you might have had that experience and you could have told like a handful of people about it, you know. But we're in this world now where you can share your stories, you can share your experience, you can message your friends, you can put your message out there in social media, and suddenly information and wisdom can spread like wildfire. And I think I'm seeing, of course, my algorithm is biased on social media, but I'm seeing a huge increase in people looking for ways to be able to find the tools within themselves to change, because I think people are fed up of being reliant on outside things because they know it doesn't work for them. You know, people are addicted to food, to substances, to certain forms of media, and there's so many things we could look for to rely on externally, and people are a bit fed up, I think, and the tools are out there now for them to change that.
There are, for sure. And however, there's also a lot of tools out there to distract you and keep you in a certain state. So on the one hand, people have access to a lot more information, but maybe if they have access to too much information, they feel overwhelmed. And there's like this balance between like having the right information to then go and act on it and implement it into your life, compared to actually over consuming information and just staying in that state. And I've met so many people who are in that, where it's like they feel that just consuming more information and more information is going to help them to change something in their life. But it's the step up next, which is taking the action on the information and implementing it into your life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's when that knowledge is applied that it becomes wisdom, right? Like when you take action. And I think also a big part of it that I've been reflecting on recently is that as well as what you're doing and like what you're changing in your life in terms of action, it's also about who you're becoming in the process. You know, if you do loads of new things in this new short time, you know, you're changing your habits, changing your behaviors. If you haven't changed who you are as a person, then fundamentally you're still kind of the same person. And I think that once you truly start to change yourself as a person, that's when your life begins to change, you know. It doesn't have to be, you know, the typical midlife crisis that people go through. They buy the expensive car, they go on holiday, they look for a new lease of life, not realizing that it's their internal reality that creates their external reality. It doesn't have to be the other way around. But I feel like consumerism kind of loves the idea that you have to have something outside of you, right?
Definitely.
You know?
And I feel like this ties into meditation, because for me, before I meditated, I didn't view any separation between that side of myself that is like reactive to the outside world, and then my center, my calm, and the observer. And then when you connect with that side of yourself, you can then witness like yourself going through a process of being triggered, and then you don't feel attached to the emotions that come through the trigger. It's like, okay, I feel like it happens to me when someone cuts me off when I'm driving. It's like for a microsecond I get like pissed off, and I'm like, okay, smile, okay, keep going.
Yeah.
And then it's just noticing those moments when they happen in your life. And I feel like meditation is the practice that helps you to really see that difference in yourself and connect with the true version of you, your core self.
That's so well said. It's so well said. And exactly what you're talking about. It allows you to get in the space between stimulus and response. Like we live in a world of so much stimulus. Like you said, we're like drowning in information potentially, you know, if we were to not be conscious and mindful of what we're consuming. And meditation creates a level of mindfulness where the stimuli that are appearing in your life, you get to choose how you want to respond to them.
Yes.
And that is such an empowered place, because when people are cutting you off in traffic, suddenly it doesn't ruin your entire day, you know, or make you feel like crap. You can just let it go. And that takes practice, of course, but that's what the meditation practice is for. It's to help, you know, it's not, the process of meditation is not to be a good meditator.
Yes.
It's to help you live life and be a good human, you know. It's the practice for going out and applying it in your life. And I think that when you can truly master choosing a new response to the same stimulus in your life, you become the master of your own life, because nothing can touch you, you know. Doesn't matter what somebody says to you or what happens in your life or the situations that come your way or however bad you feel like things might be in the world, you get to choose your response to it. And yeah, like you said, you're the observer. And I think the reason that meditation is so good for this in particular is because in the process of meditation, the act of observing your thoughts means that you're not your thoughts, because you're the observer looking at the thoughts. So when you realize that you're not your thoughts, you don't associate with them so much. And I think that kind of separation and that splitting of the psyche, where you get to observe what's going on in your own mind, allows your kind of higher mind to come through and be like, all right, I'm the conductor here. I'm in control.
Right.
I'm going to observe the thoughts that are coming through, the stimulus that's coming into my world, and I'm going to choose how I want to respond to it. And then you really get to start choosing how you want to feel in your life and what you want to experience. And that's such an empowered place to be.
Yes, definitely. I think from my point of view, when I first witnessed and experienced that, was doing a 10-day meditation retreat. So we were supposed to do a Vipassana, me and a friend. And at the time, the entire country was locked down and we weren't allowed to leave. So what we did instead was book a cabin in the south of Portugal. And we decided to do our own meditation retreat for 10 days.
Wow.
And in the middle of nature. So what we actually recorded a podcast. It's still on YouTube. At the end of each day, we shared our insights. But during the day, we kind of just sat with the practice. We tried to follow the whole Vipassana program, but in the end, we kind of figured our own path and what worked for us. And what I realized was a lot of the times, my mind just wanted to be distracted and wanted to talk. And then when I pushed through that and actually just like stayed in the silence, I could see how easy it was to remain there. But it's like, it's almost like, for me, I use the ice bath as a perfect example, where it's like, I go into the ice bath sometimes and I'm like, okay, I just want to get out after 1 second. But I know I can stay there for 3 minutes, but it's like, your mind will just tell you, no, let's just quickly go. But then once it realizes that you're there to stay, it will change the scope again. So
yeah, and it really is like that. I think it's Dr. Joe Dispenza says it's like where the body has become the mind. Like we've been conditioned ourselves over such a long period of time that our body's kind of running the show, you know. And that's where we end up following cravings. We end up becoming lazy, or we're procrastinating, or we're, you know, doing things that don't feel aligned with us. Is because it's our emotional, egoic body that is running the show. And once you start to take control of that, the body does eventually say, all right, like, yeah, I get it. Whatever you're doing is working. You know, I will do whatever it is you're suggesting. But it's not easy at times. And it takes a level of discipline, I think. But it's always so worth it. Like when you get in the ice bath and you want to get out and then you sit through it anyway, it's just the feeling that you get afterwards is so good. It's so good. And then you can use that as like the motivation next time, right? To be able to say, even when it gets tough, I'm going to stick through it. And that builds character, that builds strength, that builds resilience and willpower. And you can do that with meditation, but you can also do that in all aspects of your life, you know. There's going to be certain things that are beneficial for you that you might not want to do, but when you do them, you know they'll make you feel better. And I think building up a reservoir of kind of resilience and perseverance in being able to do that is such a powerful skill that is kind of lacking, I think, a lot in society, where everything's like short-term validation, get things quickly, you know. That's the way I'm seeing things as well.
Yeah, that instant gratification, I feel like, is a big thing in our society now. And one thing that I used to do, which I recently realized I need to bring back into my life as a practice, is that once a week on a Sunday, I would just have a no stimulus day, where it was like no talking, no, at some points like a full fast as well, but sometimes no input, and just completely just being with myself, being with my breath, connecting with my just being. A lot of times we've kind of in our life, we're always just in this momentum, in a flow, always going, always onto the next thing, and never taking that time to sit and be with ourselves. And one of the most common like resistant issues, or one of the most common like issues that people have shared with me when it comes to meditation as a coach, is that they say they don't have time to meditate. So I'm wondering if that's something that you've ever experienced, either yourself or people have told you they don't have time to meditate. And what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I totally get the struggle. And I know that for so many people, that is their reality, where they have responsibilities. They might have kids, a family, a relationship they want to tend to, and their career. And they feel like they don't have the time to meditate. But there's always some time, you know. I'm sure that there's time in people's day where they might have a distraction. They might, you know, check their phone, or, you know, scroll through social media, or even just setting an alarm a couple of minutes earlier in the morning can give you that time that you need, right? But I think in order to do that, you need to have a level of kind of attached importance in your mind as to the process that you're doing. Because if you don't have that level of importance in your awareness, then you're not going to be driven or motivated to take the action. So I think, first of all, it's really important for people to get clear on why it is that they want to meditate in the first place. It shouldn't be like this social pressure, like, oh, all my friends are meditating, everyone on social media is doing it, I've been told that it makes me happy, so maybe I should meditate, you know?
Right.
I don't feel like anything good comes out of shoulds, you know? I feel like that inner compulsion to choose to create your life consciously could be the driving force that would be more powerful for that. And I think when it comes to that, it's really about, it's not about the time that you meditate. I think it's about the focus and the intention that you put into it. So first of all, why do you want to meditate? Do you want to feel calmer? Do you want to feel more creative and in flow in your work? Do you want to be more present and connected with your family and friends? Do you want to feel a spiritual connection? Everybody will have their own unique reason as to why they want to meditate. And it might change throughout each time they do a meditation as well. But I think once you know why you want to do it, and then also how you're going to meditate, what exactly it is that you're going to do in the meditation, and finding a way that works for you, those are such important aspects that I think a lot of people overlook. Right. And people sometimes say, oh, I don't have time for meditation, but maybe they've been trying to do, you know, like a 15-minute guided meditation on Spotify that they actually, you know, don't really have time in their day for, when they could just take 30 seconds to sit there and just be with their breath, or observe their thoughts, or visualize a version of themselves they want to become, or bring their attention back into the present moment. And you can literally do that within seconds with practice. But it really is a case of practice. And I think as well, it's also taking the pressure off of making it perfect. You know, the saying is practice makes perfect, but I see it as practice makes progress. And the more that you practice with meditation, the more progress you make, the more you're going to see the benefits of it in your life, and the more you're going to be able to implement it. And it really doesn't have to take a long time. It can be just as simple as, you know, even 10 seconds. Right. Just, you don't even have to close your eyes. You can take a deep breath, you know, in through your nose and exhaling out through the mouth, and just feeling your attention coming back to now. And that in itself can be like a meditation, you know. It's really making it a process that works for you, and having a strong intention of doing it. I think those are two really important things. And then also, finding a way of doing it that works for you, a methodology, and try stuff out, you know. Do you like to visualize stuff? Do you like to imagine yourself in a place that you've been in the past that makes you feel relaxed? Do you like to repeat affirmations to yourself? Do you like to, you know, quiet your mind? Do you like to observe your thoughts? I think it's important to experiment with it and be a bit curious and have fun with it. It doesn't have to be like a serious thing, you know. That's another thing. We were speaking earlier about like the perceptions we have of meditation, or that we had when we were younger. One of them I always saw was like very serious. Like you have to sit in this very straight position with certain, your hands in a certain position, and like, you know, you cannot let any thoughts enter your mind, all this kind of nonsense. When really it can be a fun creative process, because that's what happens with life. You get to be a conscious co-creator of your own life. And that's an exciting thing. That shouldn't be something that feels like a chore, you know. And once you start seeing the benefits and you start finding a way of meditating that works for you, it is something that you want to get up for every single day. You're excited, you know. And when you're more excited for that than, you know, checking your phone first thing or getting a cup of coffee first thing, the game really starts to change, because then you've got some momentum that's going to start taking you to some really deep levels within yourself, and it gets very exciting from there.
Yeah, you shared a couple of different versions of meditation, a couple of different methods and techniques. I'm wondering if you have a particular one you prefer. You mentioned visualization, kind of focus, mindfulness, these kind of meditations. Is it about what fits the moment, or is it more of like, okay, I prefer this one in the morning and this one when I'm trying to do, like, actually manifest a project? Or how does that work for you?
Yeah, it really does change. Like over the years, I've learned different modalities that I feel like have worked for different things, and I definitely change it up. And I've actually created this 4-step method that I find so helpful, because it really simplifies things. And this is kind of what I use if I feel like, oh, what do I want to do my meditation for right now? Or I feel like I want to meditate on this thing. What can I do to help kind of cultivate that? And the first step is intention. So we spoke about this before. Why do you want to meditate? Is it to feel calmer? Is it to feel more present, more peaceful, to manifest something? Whatever it is, that's your intention. And then the second step is preparation. So based on that intention, what are you going to do in the meditation? How long are you going to sit there for? You know, is it going to be for 60 seconds? Are you going to do it laying down or sitting up? Are you going to do it with your eyes open or closed, with music or without music? Where are you going to do it? You know, and all of these things, you don't have to like write them down, but you can just think in your head like, okay, right now I want to feel more calm, for example. So my preparation is for 60 seconds, I'm going to listen to some relaxing music, slow down my breath, and just focus on the breath, right? So that could be the intention and the preparation. It could be as simple as that. The third step is the meditation. That's the fun part. You get to put into practice and do it. And then the fourth step is integration, which is essentially taking that through to your day, and also maybe just taking a moment to reflect on how the meditation was. Was there anything that you struggled with? Was there anything that you feel like you'd like to do differently next time, that you enjoyed, that you didn't enjoy? Any downloads that came through? And just using those 4 steps, intention, preparation, meditation, and integration, anybody can create a meditation practice within any amount of time that really works for them, that is specific and customized. And I like that it kind of gives you the emphasis on your intuition of what you want to create in your meditation. So if I'm feeling like my intention is, oh, I really want to, you know, feel fired up about my future, I can say, okay, for 10 minutes, for example, I'm going to sit with my eyes closed. I'm first going to take some deep breaths to relax. Then I'm going to imagine and embody and visualize my future and feel how it feels. And then rehearse how I'm going to act in my day to be able to be in alignment with that. And at the end, I'm going to, give thanks to my future self, something like that, and then reflect on it. And I think it's such a simple process, and anybody can use it to create a meditation that works for them. So that's the practice that I use and that I share with people, because I feel like it really simplifies and personalizes it for people.
Yeah, that's a nice framework. It kind of has everything there, all the elements, and then it's up to you to decide how much of each you wanna create, and sort of gives you that flexibility as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and also like your intention and your preparation could be, I want to feel relaxed, so I'm going to listen to a guided meditation. You don't have to do it for yourself, but it just makes it really work for you. Okay. And then I think you enjoy the process more because it's more based on you.
I'm wondering about if you have any experience with breath work, or what's your opinion on that?
I love breath work. I'm a huge advocate for it. I've tried a lot of different techniques, and all of them have been super powerful for me. I was introduced to breath work via Wim Hof. So I know you love your ice baths and your breath work. So, and Wim Hof's been a massive inspiration. And for me, I think, breath work is an extremely powerful practice for transformation, and it just pairs perfectly with meditation. And I actually begin every single meditation that I do with some form of breath control or some form of breath work, because it has such a power to calm the mind, to relax the nervous system, to cleanse the body, and to create a certain level of energy and kind of potency within the body that is so kind of fast and intense. That it would take a longer time to get into that state through meditation. But then using breath work, you can actually really enhance your meditation experience and get into that state of flow really, really quickly, really easily. And it's always been super profound for me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like they're so connected. And when it comes to breath work, I feel like there's levels and depths that you can experience, and it's sort of, for some people it could be like an easier way to get there, whereas in a meditation it's very difficult for someone to understand how exactly do you clear your mind, how do you step into the observer part. But when it comes to the breath work, it's sort of just like, okay, follow the practice and follow along, and more times out than not, people will actually experience a shift or an energetic change.
Yeah, definitely. And I think breathwork's one of those things, as well as meditation, that isn't just for the practice itself. It's not just for the breathwork session, but it's how are you breathing throughout your entire day? And that really changes the game, like
it does.
I realized this at one point, like we never really learn how to breathe properly.
Oh, that's so
we're
true.
not taught that, like unless you're an athlete or a performer or like an actor, because they need to use their breath and their voice and their performance. We never learn to breathe.
We never do.
We have obviously the inherent capacity to do it, but if we don't learn consciously to do it, we can get into some patterns that are really unhealthy. And
that's true.
I noticed that, like, I used to hold my breath a lot, especially when I was tense or anxious, and just relaxing the breath and slowing down my breathing and doing that throughout the day has such a calming effect on my nervous system. It's really profound, and that doesn't seem like breath work to me. That's like it's like breath joy, breath bliss that comes with that. And
that's so true. Like, we never learn how to breathe, and I think for me especially, like, I went through many years of just breathing from my mouth, thinking that was normal.
Yeah,
and mouth breathing just because my nose was a little bit blocked. And I didn't realize that actually breathing from a bit of a blocked nose is a lot better than breathing from your mouth.
Yes.
It's like, even if your nose is 70% blocked, it's still better than your mouth.
Yeah, 100%. I was the same, man. When I was a teenager, I lived in this room that was super dusty. Like, it was wild dusty. And I always had like blocked, congested nose and sinuses. So I was always breathing through my mouth and while I was sleeping as well. Yeah. And it caused so much problems as well in my jaw. Like, the breath has an effect on our jaw development, on all of our facial muscles, and so many aspects of our health. I just think learning to breathe properly is just vitally important. Like, if people can learn to breathe properly and can learn meditation and the ability to kind of direct their focus, to be able to harness the power of their mind, just those two things alone can completely change someone's life.
It's life-changing.
Yeah.
For sure. And now, it's funny you mentioned sleep, because I now sleep with mouth tape for a while, and I've noticed such a big difference, because snoring's always been a problem for me, and I just thought it was part of life.
Right.
And it's the same, like I'd never learned how to breathe, and you kind of just don't think that it's that important. You just sort of think like, okay, I can breathe. It's not something you need to learn. And I remember, I don't know if you know Jay Shetty.
Yeah, I love Jay Shetty.
In his book, he mentioned that when he went to the monks, one of the first things they teach you as a monk is how to breathe.
Right.
And it's like, it's the most fundamental thing. They're like, okay, what did you learn at school? Of course, it's the first thing is how to breathe. It's the most basic thing on this earth. And it makes a lot of sense for you to be learning that as soon as you enter school. And yet we're never taught it anywhere.
Yeah, it's so true. And then, we see people in society in general with super dysregulated nervous systems, in fight or flight, in stress, in survival mode all the time. And so much of that can just be harmonized and balanced through the breath, just breathing properly in not just in the daytime, but like you said, it's in sleep as well. And I know for some people the idea of mouth tape is scary, but it really works, to force yourself to breathe through your nose. One way that I found as well, if people don't want to tape their mouths up while they go to sleep, and they find that too scary, I found that just setting the intention before I go to sleep to consciously close my mouth and breathe through my nose helped me do it throughout the rest of the night. I've got I had this app where it records your night's sleep,
as well.
Yeah, and then there's a massive change when you do that, because it's I know the power that comes with planting ideas in your mind just before you go to sleep, and it's the same with breathing. So also sleeping on your side is generally better for not snoring. If you're on your back, your jaws can kind of like
right. Yeah, you just made
up.
me think though, because I feel like every time I go to sleep, I'm always thinking, okay, I better not snore tonight again, instead of thinking or setting the intention that I'm not going to snore tonight.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a powerful shift. It's just putting that intention out there before the bed.
And I'd love to speak a bit about that as well, because I find this phase between sleep and wakefulness to be so fascinating. It's the hypnagogic and the hypnopompic states where we're going to sleep and we're waking up and we're like drifting between those two zones, right? So as you're in your waking state, you're generally in beta brainwave patterns. And if you look this up online, or I don't know if you can put it on the video or something, you have all these different brainwave patterns that your brain is exhibiting at all times. And whichever one's most dominant is affects, or it's kind of a reflection of what's going on in your brain, and also has an effect on your state. Throughout most of the waking day, we're in beta because we're processing a lot of information, a lot of stimuli from our external world. And then as you're going to sleep, your brainwaves start to slow down. You dip into alpha, which is associated with more creativity. You dip into theta, which is associated with hypnotic states and deep meditation. And then when you're in deep sleep, you're in delta brainwaves, which are like these super long, super slow brainwave states. That's the body's level of deep healing. Like in those states, your body will go through profound levels of healing. That's why sleep is one of the reasons why sleep is so important. But as we cycle through those brainwaves and we go into alpha and theta, you actually have instant access to the subconscious mind, because the beta, the waking state, is the conscious mind. There's so many estimates which say that the conscious mind is only between 5 and 10% of our neural processes. And the subconscious mind is between 90 and 95. So it's like an iceberg, right? The tip of the iceberg is the conscious. The rest of it is the subconscious. Right. And that subconscious is the library of all of our past experiences, all of our beliefs about ourselves, our stories, our memories, our identities. They're all stored in the subconscious. And that 90 to 95% is running the show for most of us. And it has so much power to be able to change our lives when we reprogram our subconscious mind. And as we are going to sleep, we go from beta to alpha and theta, those two states where you've got access to the subconscious mind. And in those states, because you have that access, it means that if you want to plant something in your subconscious, an idea or an intention or a question or a suggestion, it's gonna go in much easier than if you were trying to do it in your beta waking state, right? And it's the same when you're waking up first thing in the morning. Your brain goes from delta to theta to alpha, and then as you're waking up, you wake up into beta, and as you're waking up, you're in those states as well. And that's why I meditate first thing in the morning, and I sometimes do it before I go to bed as well, because for me that is the simplest way for me to access my subconscious mind and reprogram any unhelpful programs that might be going on under there, you know, in that 90 to 95%. And that's a real game changer as well. Whereas a lot of people might have certain patterns that are not so helpful when they're going to sleep. Maybe they read a message that stresses them out about work the next day, or first thing when they wake up in the morning, it's a stressful thought about yesterday or today or the next day, or they check social media and they read the news and they see that something terrible's happened, and all of this is just flooding into the subconscious mind and kind of programming themselves and prepping them for the day. And I think that we can be so much more conscious in that process and know that those are such potent, magical times of the day to be able to create transformation and really create our lives. And there's science to back that up as well with the brainwaves and psychology. So I've been applying that as well. I think it's a really great practice to meditate first thing in the morning and before you go to sleep as well. Or just set intentions, you know, like, I know we got to this topic, slight detour from breathing, but just setting the intention to breathe, you know, through your nose as you sleep can be really powerful.
Yeah, I find that fascinating because for a lot of people, as you mentioned, they are going through a process of waking up or going to sleep, and the only thing on their mind is their phone, it's their social media, it's the news, it's watching something, and whatever information is now, what they're absorbing is now then going into their subconscious.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is kind of, maybe they're watching other people wishing they were living their lives and kind of ingraining this feeling of victimhood even deeper. And what you're saying is that is the ideal moment where they can actually change their lives.
Yeah.
Is if they shift that pattern, keep the phone away from the bed and set an intention and use that time to meditate. So if you don't have time to meditate, maybe that's the answer.
Exactly.
Like that. Just to keep the phone away from the bed, and those 5 minutes before you fall asleep, do it then.
Truly. Yeah. It's a really, really potent time. And those times in particular where you have access to your subconscious mind is so powerful because many of us, the lives that or the aspects of our lives that we don't feel contented with, a lot of it is programs based on things that are happening from our past, you know, habits or beliefs that we have about ourselves, or recurring thoughts that are not so helpful, maybe stories that we have about who we are and our relationship with the world. And all of that is stored in the subconscious mind, and it's the 90 to 95%, so it's running a huge part of your being. And if there's an aspect of your life that you feel like you're maybe self-sabotaging in, it's likely because it's a pattern going on in your subconscious. And to try and change that with the conscious mind, that 5% is really, really hard. And you might consciously want something in your life. You might say, oh, I would love to have my dream relationship with a partner. But then you can never seem to create the right relationship, or you're attracting the wrong people. There's likely some kind of, you know, disconnect between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. Maybe there's a belief within yourself that you're not good enough, or that you don't deserve a specific relationship. And it doesn't have to be that way, but you can actually reprogram that belief in your subconscious mind. And once you start to do that, because the subconscious mind, as an extension of the ego, wants to prove itself right all the time, if you change the narrative that's going on in your subconscious to say, I am worthy of love, I am worthy of a loving relationship. The subconscious, like I said, is the extension of an ego, wants to prove itself right. And then it will start, you'll stop self-sabotaging, and you'll start, you know, looking for things in your world that prove that. And once you can start planting those new ideas instead of the old patterns, the old stories, and the old behaviors that you might have received as conditioning throughout your life, once you can choose those new ones consciously and reprogram your subconscious mind, it becomes so much easier, and you won't self-sabotage anymore, because all self-sabotage is your ego trying to prove itself right about a story that it believes. And that belief that you might have, that story might never have been yours in the first place.
Right.
It might have been passed on to you by your parents, by your peers, a teacher, a friend, a situation that you had. That because when you're a kid, you're in delta, theta, and alpha brainwave states predominantly, you're like a sponge to everything in your world. And so if somebody tells you you're not good enough, you're ugly, you don't deserve that relationship, you just believe it because you have no mental faculty to perceive right or wrong. It goes straight into your subconscious mind. And then we end up as an adult being like, yo, what's going on here? I'm a grown adult with, all this potential, but I feel like something's holding me back. It's probably worth looking at that 90 to 95% and tapping into those states where you have access to the subconscious is a great place to do that.
It's fascinating. I feel like self-sabotage has always been interesting to me because it's something I experienced. And when I was fully committed to changing something, I could notice how my actions were just leading me to self-sabotage.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's not in your conscious mind. So your conscious mind may feel like it wants a certain result, and yet the programming that runs you says otherwise. But what you're saying to change it is not to try and fight against the programming. It's about recoding the programming down at that level.
Yeah.
So then it works for you. So to have the mechanism working for you, because it's gonna process information in that way anyways. Why not just change that belief down at the core level?
That's exactly it, man. It's like you get to be the software engineer of your own mind.
Right.
We use so many words. We use program and system for our mind. And it's just like if you've got a phone or a device that hasn't been updated for a really long time and it's really laggy, it's not working properly, and you're getting frustrated at it. Sometimes you just need to update it and then it runs smoothly. It's kind of the same with our minds. We have these old programs and these old systems, old firmware almost that's running that we sometimes need to update. But in order to do that, we can't reprogram the programs of our mind as the program itself. We have to become conscious of the programs that we're running and be the software engineer of our own mind. And that requires, first of all, being aware of what those programs and systems and patterns are, and then having the tools to be able to actually change those up. And meditation is the perfect way to do that because it creates that disconnect between, rather than 95% being the 100%, it's still that. It's still something you can be aware of, so it's not completely controlling your life, and you can actually use it in your advantage rather than being a hindrance to you. Harnessing. But here's the thing, you don't need to do it first thing in the morning or before you go to bed. It helps because your brain's already in those states. But through meditation, you can go into alpha and theta. With practice, you can do it easily. It takes slowing down your mind, because if you think of beta brainwaves are really super fast, high frequency, there's a lot of information being processed. Your thoughts are generally very fast. And most people are in high levels of beta throughout the day because they're processing so much information. And through meditation, if you can actually slow your thoughts down or just observe your thoughts, which will naturally slow down your mental processes, your brain, in theory, should slow down into alpha and theta, and then you're in those states again with access to your subconscious mind. You can become aware of the programs that might be there and program them in a way that works for you.
Yes. Are you familiar with the Silver method?
Yes. Yeah, yes. I studied the Silver method.
It sounds very familiar because I practiced that for a little bit as well. And it was about going into these different brain waves and reprogramming on that level. And maybe I need to revisit that, because when I went into the Silver method, my life was completely different. And I noticed how everything that I was looking to manifest back then, I'm actually living. So perhaps it's time to revisit it.
Yeah, the Silver method is an amazing tool, and I use the tools and techniques from that from time to time. But a lot of it is about getting into an alpha state, because, like I said, it's associated with creativity and abstract thinking. And sometimes the problems that we have to solve in our life can't just be solved with logic and, you know, critical thinking and like cold, hard intelligence. Yes. Sometimes it takes a level of creativity and abstraction to look at the problem from a bigger perspective and say, like, what's really going on here, and tap into, I think, also the power of the subconscious mind. It's 95% of our mental process. Like, let's harvest that mine of potential and knowledge that's within us, and access that and tap into that. And through an alpha meditative practice such as the Silver Method, you can do that. That's definitely one that works. But, you know, again, try it out. If it works for you, then go for it. And if it doesn't, then it's cool. Like, try something else. But there's so many different tools out there that you can try. But it's, you know, I kind of see, just to like kind of wrap up that specific topic, it's like Inception. Like, if, you know, for people that have seen Inception, the idea of inception is that you're incepting an idea, you're planting an idea so deep within somebody's mind, you know, dream within a dream, that the idea will then naturally grow into, you know, and they will wake up and be like, oh, this is my own idea, because it came from so deep within their subconscious mind. And they do that through dreams. So through sleeping, we're going into this deep subconscious realm. And yeah, you can plant ideas in there, you know, before you go to sleep, or when you wake up, or in meditation. And it's just like Inception, but you get to plant ideas in your own mind of what you want to create. Exactly. You're like incepting yourself. It's really cool. And you can choose ideas and thoughts and beliefs that are healthy and that are productive and that work for you. And when you start to do this and you start to do it well, suddenly these things will just start changing within yourself, and you'll be like, whoa, where did that come from? And you won't even remember that you created it, but you did. And it's such a cool process that I think is just so powerful and so transformative.
Yeah, I feel like it's something I'm going to explore for sure. Maybe starting with the snoring as a first step into it. And one of the things that I realize is that a lot of people that I've worked with, they are looking to step into their power. They're looking to, you know, become facilitators, and they always find that this subconscious mind, their own patterns, their limiting beliefs are the things that are holding them back. Maybe they'll tell themselves it's a lack of money or lack of ideas or a lack of knowledge, but at the end of the day, if they have all those tools, it's still them that's holding them back. So I'm wondering, is this something that you experience yourself, and how does it that you are able to overcome this like self-limitations to really step into your power?
Yeah, it's absolutely something that I've experienced. And it's, you know, for me, it manifested as like imposter syndrome. Like, oh, I'm who am I to teach? You know, like, what do I know? And I actually think imposter syndrome, I kind of reframe it as something positive, because I think that to an extent, if you're experiencing imposter syndrome, you're probably pushing your comfort zone a little bit. So it's kind of, I think it's a good thing to acknowledge that that you're feeling it, but then not to allow it to actually hold you back. And for me, it definitely did for a long time. I think a belief that I had as well was that, you know, you can't make money through doing this, or like people don't want to listen to what it is that I have to say, or it doesn't, you know, I don't matter, or that I'm not worthy of doing this, I'm not good enough, all these kind of things. And for me, it really was a process of reprogramming my subconscious mind and becoming somebody new. Like, I realized that I couldn't step into this new future version of myself as the old version of Joe, you know? And so a lot of it for me was in my meditation practice, connecting with a future version of myself, or a version of myself that already exists now that I wanted to become, and kind of stepping into that future and then looking at what that version of me would do throughout the day, and then starting to do that, and how that version of me would be throughout the day, and starting to be that, you know, and what kind of thoughts would come up in my mind, like, oh, you're not good enough, or start tomorrow. I would notice and become aware that those thoughts might come up in my day, and I'd rehearse how I'm going to respond to those. So when those thoughts then come up during my day, I'm already prepared. I'm already, you know, primed for my brain to say, that's not true. That's just an old story. You know, let's switch that up. you can do this. You're good enough. You're going to get through this. Stick with it. And I think slowly but surely, you know, again, through reprogramming my own beliefs and my own patterns and my own stories, and then proving it to myself by actually taking aligned action, you know, following through with that, I was able to prove to myself that what I have to say is of value, and that I can do this, and that people, you know, do want to hear what it is that I have to offer. And it can be a patient process, but it's also a fun one, because you get to, again, you get to create your own life. You get to decide who you want to be, what kind of life you want to live and lead, what kind of impact you want to have on other people. And I think a big part of it for me was realizing that stepping into a role as a facilitator, by me holding myself back and not doing this, I could actually be holding other people back. Because imagine all the people's lives that I could be touching by doing this work and helping them overcome all of this stuff. And if I just, you know, shrunk back to my old thoughts, patterns, and beliefs, I may never have helped the people that I've helped and had the impact that I've had. And that was a real motivator internally for me. It's like, it takes it away from being like a selfish thing to, all right, I've got to do this, because once I step into this, I can really help other people and have an impact on other people.
Right.
And I think once you start making the game about helping and serving other people, some other kind of intelligence steps in and kind of helps you on the path.
It's true. And you even flip it. Like, the way I saw it was, actually, it would be selfish of me not to help people.
Yeah.
It's
exactly. Yeah, it's just true. It would, like, how selfish to, you know,
Right.
to you know, become so self-absorbed in our old stories and beliefs.
Right.
But yeah, it truly doesn't have to be that way. And I just hear so many people tell me they have these dreams, these hopes, these ambitions, these things that they want to do, and there's always a but after it. But, you know, but I don't think I'm good enough, but I don't have money, but I'm not ready yet. And, you know, those are just stories that people are telling themselves, and stories that they've accepted to be true. And I think the process of changing your life and becoming a new person is about rewriting your story, about choosing a new story for yourself consciously,
Yes.
not the stories that you might have been told or that you've told yourself over the years. And yeah, be the creator of your own life.
That's it.
What movie do you want to play in what role do you want to play in your own life?
Exactly.
And write that story. And that's the creative process, and it gets so
amazing.
fun. Conscious co-creators, you know?
That's what it is. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's for you as well, since you wanted to become a movie director. Now you're like directing your own life's movie.
That was, I forgot to wrap that thread up, you know? Yeah, I was thinking about that, how I had this dream of like creating worlds, you know,
Right.
in my movies and
Right.
creating things on the screen. And then I realized through meditation that I could create them in real life. And I was like, this is way cooler, you know? So I put the movie side of stuff on the back bench until another time, and started focusing on creating, you know, this
Right.
movie, you know, this movie of my life.
This movie.
And it's been so much more fun for me personally. And then helping other people through it as well is just so fulfilling. I think that in a world that tries to encourage you to kind of be selfish and to, you know, serve only the needs of the big corporations and the big companies, it's so powerful to choose to overcome your own, you know, self-imposed limitations and beliefs, to be able to step into service and facilitation for helping other people. And I see that happening in the world, and it's so inspiring. It's so beautiful. And I love that you're creating the space for this as well, to be able to help people on that journey, to give people the tools to be able to really do this, and yeah, to help them unlock the confidence and the knowledge and the wisdom to step into this, because there's so many people out there that have potent gifts and wisdom and knowledge and experience that they could be sharing with people, but there's something holding them back from doing it. Like we've spoken to people, and I've heard people say that they feel like they need a permission slip. They feel like they need somebody to say, now you're ready, you know?
A lot of them will ask for like a certificate. They'll feel like, if I get certified, then I'll be ready.
Right.
And then after 4 or 5 certifications, they're still waiting for the next one to feel ready.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about giving themselves that permission.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely value in getting certified with certain practices, so that you're,
Right.
you know, training properly, but at a certain level you have to say, all right,
Right.
I'm ready for this. What is holding me back is an internally imposed state.
Yes.
And those people could be having such a huge impact, and I know that they will, once they choose to overcome those stories ultimately that they might still be running about themselves. And I get it. Like I've been through it. I've been through the kind of fear and the anxiety that comes with stepping into the unknown and doing something that's putting yourself on the line, taking a risk, knowing that you might fail. But that's part of life. I think we should all have goals that scare us a little and excite us a lot. And if there's something anyone's listening to that they feel like there's something that really excites them but just scares them a little bit, lean into that and see what's on the other side of that fear, because the treasure that you seek is within the cave which you fear to enter. And once you acknowledge that fear that you might be having is often way more exaggerated than it's actually going to turn out to be, you can kind of take it head on. And then once you overcome that fear and you get through it and you realize it wasn't as scary as you thought it was going to be, you have this kind of spiritual, energetic confidence and momentum to be able to start taking on life's challenges with a level of kind of courage and vigor that is kind of makes you unstoppable. And I choose meditation as my form of doing this, and I use breath work and I focus on mindset as well. But I encourage people to really find a way of doing this that works for them.
Yes.
We're all so unique in our own beautiful ways, and to find our own gifts and our own path is one of the beautiful blessings of being a free thinking, human being with free will. So
yes,
yeah.
That's amazing. And you mentioned you do breath work, meditation, and maybe if you could share a little bit about how it is that you work with people and what you do, what journey you take them through.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do one-on-one coaching. I host retreats. We just hosted our first one here in Portugal a couple of weeks ago. It was absolutely awesome. And I'm going to be leaning a lot more into in-person retreats and events. Me and my friend are planning one in LA for a weekend in January, and then potentially another one in Central America or South America in February. And there'll be a couple more next year. And I'm also going to be opening up a group meditation coaching program at some point soon as well. So I'll be sharing more about that on my social media, but I'm also just always sharing stuff on my socials. And people can always just message me if they feel like they want support. I always just love giving from the heart, and yeah, those are the ways that I'm currently offering, support and guidance to people, and I feel really blessed to do so.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate you joining here today. Had a great conversation about meditation and everything else. So
yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It was a real pleasure. And like I said, I love what you're doing here. So thank you for showing up for the world, for showing up for facilitators and helping people remember the conscious co-creators that they are.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, bro.
Right. And that's it.